I love making homemade embellishments. I could make oodles and oodles of them. But then I struggle to actually put them on the page. It feels weird to mix these homemade items with store-bought embellishments. Glitter Girl, can you help?
Of course I can. My short answer is to just keep adding more, but I think the longer answer might be a little bit more helpful. So I'm going to walk through a page today, starting with some handmade embellishments and going right through the finished layout. Now, Tori, who asked this question, has a YouTube channel herself, and she has a series called Scrap Your Scraps? Yeah. That seemed right in my head and then seemed wrong when I said it because it's the same word. Scrap your scraps. So she makes different handmade embellishments and finishes layouts in a way where basically the only full sheet she's using is the one in the background, and then everything else is all these little pieces that she's collected from her other projects. So I'm going to take that on board, but I am using multiple sheets of big paper because my scraps are going to be the embellishment, but I'm still going to have blocks of paper because that's the way I tend to make my layouts. So I'll show you where I'm starting. Here's one tip along my way. I find it easier to make things in this particular order. Make the background first, and then the handmade embellishment, and then put it all together on the layout. I find that those 3 steps are more useful to me. I tried a lot in the past couple years to do just the embellishments and have them waiting there in a dish, but that made a lot of sense for the time I had because I had time maybe to come and make 1 or 2 embellishments, and I could just have a little space and just kind of satisfy a creative need by coming and making one little tag or one little journaling block that was embellished. But then I found it really difficult to add it to my page because when I made those little embellishments, I wasn't thinking the whole project through, and I might not have enough scraps that would coordinate to complete the layout in a way that I liked. So I found that if I just did the background for the layout and I sat that somewhere I could see it, then if I took my little 5 minutes here and there to make embellishments, when I went to put it on that background, my logic the style had flown all the way through because I had some sort of an end goal in mind, even though I didn't know what the finished page would look like. So today I'm going to be scrapbooking this funny little photo, and we recently went to visit some family and take Wonder Boy to see my mom and grandmother and all of that, and got to the airport and realized we haven't taken a photo together, and he was asleep. So this is hilariously the only photo with my grandmother and me and Wonder Boy all here together. It's the back of his sleeping head. Oh, he has bedhead and everything. So it's better than nothing, but it's kind of a funny story. So I want to put that in my album and write it down. I've chosen papers based on a few different things. One is that my grandmother is wearing royal blue. She wears royal blue a lot. She looks so lovely in royal blue, and also she's from Kansas City, so royal blue is kind of a thing there. And so I went ahead to my stash and pulled out a royal blue pattern paper. This is from Amy Tangerine Finders Keepers. But if I put this photo right on top of that, it's too much. You lose our photo, or you lose our faces in all of this blue. So what I'm going to do is make this the outside frame, and I'm going to build other stuff on top that uses some blue. But I also liked the idea of including some pink, and this one actually is shades of pink into red, and that is from Dear Lizzie Happy Place. And I wanted some aqua or turquoise because I'm almost incapable of scrapbooking without it. But I know there's that whole rule about blue and green should never be seen. Whatever. I like it together. And I wanted to put aqua with royal blue. So this is also from Happy Place. It has bubbles on the A side, but I really like this B side. So I'm going to use those 3 in big blocks to make my background. And then I've already pulled out these 2 that I'm going to use as well for their royal blue content. So this is a transparency from the new Amy Tangerine collection, and some of these little boxes are blue. I'm going to cut them apart. I'm not sure which ones I'm going to use, but I'm going to use some of the blue boxes on that transparency. And then this is the Finders Keepers camera print, and I want to use some little blue cameras. There's also the aqua and the pink. So there are 3 different colors there that I could use. It's really only the orange one that doesn't go with what I pulled out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and less talking, more scrapping. Okay, And then I have my scraps that are going to come into play next once I get this background put together. And then I'm going to go to this one next because I like the idea of having that high contrast, so most of my background is going to have that white with the pink. Big box with this. I think I'll start at about 8 by 8 square, and I think I will go with this corner. And I think I will build here, which is very similar to what you've seen me do recently. And if you've been watching, I'm just going to do gray ink on this box so that it has a little bit more of a defined edge. And then I'm going to set these aside to work on my handmade embellishments inspired by toy. Now, if I have this on my desk and I can see these colors and everything that I'm intending to include, then when I make my handmade embellishments, I'm more likely to get them the right size, the right color, the right sort of feel for what I want to put on my page. I went to my scrap basket and pulled out a bunch of things that were at the front of the basket that seemed to match the colors in one way or another. So I have a few little pieces left from this Notes and Things paper from Crepe Paper. It's one of my favorite designs ever. I love cut-aparts where you have all these tiny pieces and you can just keep cutting and embellish for ages and ages. Some pink stripe. This Viewmaster print from Echo Park. That was in Note to Self, which is a while back. And this is really getting old. That's a Love Elsie paper from KI Memories a long time ago. And I've used part of it and the rest has been in my scraps forever. And then this one I used just recently, so that's from Finders Keepers, but there's more of that aqua. So I thought sometimes it really helps to have a little bit of a mix of sizes, because now if I want some photo mats or something, I have some bigger pieces as well as the smaller ones. Taking some inspiration from sorts of things that Tori picks out in her handmade embellishment videos, I thought I would start with some stamps, and I'm also going to do some punches. Now, one of the things that I find helps to incorporate the mix of handmade and purchased embellishments is to include some frames. So I'm going to stamp some frames and then be able to cut them out. This is a little Instax style frame stamp that's in an older Studio Calico travel themed set. So I think I want more than one, so I will go ahead and put one on here too. Oh, actually, yeah, I'll do this one. This second frame is similar orientation but bigger. This was from the kit. And it's when you have a stamp like this that's quite wobbly, if I go ahead and just try and place it on the block, it's going to be really hit or miss or whether I distort it. So the easiest thing to do is to just lay it down, trying not to pull it or anything like that, and then place the block on top and pick it up. And then it should stamp the way that it looks in the picture. I thought I might be able to use this one on here. Now I can, but it's not going to be the whole shape. It's going to be just this inside line. Go. Now, if I go to my bigger scraps, then I could do this whole frame on here. Okay, so I've got a big frame there, I've got two of that one, I've got one in between. So that's 4 frames. I wonder about the back side of this. I think I might do one more of the smaller frame there with this print here. I'm just using gray ink today. I thought stamping in black was just a little too harsh. Just too harsh for the photo and the story, and it's all sweetness and light, and gray ink just seemed a little bit better. Okay, then now I take my scissors and I cut out all these little frames so that I can start to turn them into little embellishments. Now, I still have more things I want to do with my scraps, but this is an ideal point to come back to my paper and start looking at what I can do and what scale or what size the rest of the embellishments that I want to make should be. So I have a big frame here. Now, it's a good height in that it's almost the same height as the photo, but it's also almost the same color as this background here. So although I like the idea of it being side by side here, I'm going to need something else behind there so that I have some contrast. And then, I originally thought, you can see, I straight away thought this one here, but then I have 3 that are matching, and none of them are in this area. So the better thing to do would be to take this one to another area of embellishment, wherever that may end up being, and bring in something that's a little bit different here, so that I'll be able to spread these across the page in different spots. And let's see if I can make 3 areas of embellishment. Or do I do, this is going to be one large area in a column? I think they'll still end up being something down here. So just place it like that for now. Now I know I need more paper layers behind there because I need some contrast. And let's see. I'm going to start with this documented blue frame. And maybe I need one over here as well. Maybe I need transparency in all 3 areas. So now I have these little groupings, but they're not proper embellishments. My next step to making them have more of a handmade embellishment feel is to do some cutting out of actual paper designs. So I'm going to cut out some of these cameras and also some of these little Viewmasters, little reels, and just cut them out with my scissors and start looking at what I can put in each of the 3 areas. Remember, my whole point in pulling out that camera print was because it had blue cameras, but then I added blue frames to each of these, and these little groupings then all had a blue presence, and this blue camera with the blue frames just seemed like too much. So instead of using the blue ones that I originally planned on, I cut out a pink camera for each grouping, and I also have a Viewmaster for each one. And then I'm going to start layering up these little Viewmasters to make them into a sense of handmade embellishment. Now, this paper from my scraps is pretty crazy busy, and that's probably why it's been in my scrap basket for so long, because there's so much going on that it can be hard to mix it with other papers. You can see from how I used it before that I've cut it into really narrow strips to just use it for little details. Well, instead of doing strips this time, I'm going to do circles. Just got out my medium circle punch, and if I take that paper down to a little piece like this, then it's not nearly so crazy in how busy it is. And I can place these in the middle of that Viewmaster. And having the music notes there even makes a lot of sense, because my grandmother is very musical. So I think, although I had punched this other one with the green, I think I will go back and make them all have the music notes. Okay. So here's the sort of handmade embellishment I would make from my scraps. So I hope this qualifies as something handmade. Of course, there are all different ways that you can cut out all these sorts of pieces. You can do them with your scissors or a knife or a digital die cutter. You could use manual die cuts to get them the shape you want. You can use punches. I don't think the end, or the process really matters in a way other than do the way that makes sense to you, and use the tools that you have, the tools that you enjoy. So I use my punches, I use my scissors a lot, and I use the other things less. And this one was a partial one, but there was no problem in using that because I know it's going to be tucked underneath there. Okay, then I start layering up, and I have a circle in the middle of my ViewMaster. So I have 3 of those matching. I know that I'm going to want a camera with each one. I've done these flat, and I think the camera, if I hold it like this, looks really nice with a little bit of dimension behind it. So I'll put all my cameras on pop dots so that I know I can layer them into that little grouping. I feel like I need more layers on top of this, and I could just continue to do smaller and smaller circles so that I get this kind of little layered piece. But I like the idea of bringing in a different shape. And something else that I've had in my scrap basket for a long time is a bunch of two-tone pink hearts. I think I must have punched out about a gazillion of these for a workshop once, and the leftovers have been in with my scraps ever since, because I know they've been there a long time. So hearts are certainly right in theme for this page. So it helps me usually to try to piece one whole grouping together and see what I like about it in case I want to move something. Like in this case, I want to move that heart so that it's on a little bit of an angle. I'm almost done with the handmade embellishments from the scraps, but I am going to go one little step further and bring out something that I haven't brought out in a while, and that is some tulle. And this one is, you can get tulle netting in big sheets like normal fabric, or you can get it in smaller rolls like ribbon, and this one is like ribbon. Okay, and what I'm going to do is, so I've cut roughly a square. I want to put it behind there, but I want it to have a little bit of texture to it. So I just pinch in the middle so that I have a little bit of a crease. Then I'm going to put adhesive here, and more than I normally use, so that I can then, take the netting with the pinch in the middle and stick it down to the back. So against the aqua then you can see that it's no longer that perfect square. Now of course you can definitely do it with perfect squares, but I like the little bit of motion or different shape that I get with that little twist. But having that extra texture is going to help in mixing all of these different elements together, because it basically gives a little layer in between what I made and then the other things that I'm going to put on top, or the other layers that are behind. And it just gives a nice finish that tends to make it all work. Okay, enough talking about tulle. I know I have one for each area. The next problem I have with this layout is that I now have all of this aqua together and I need some different paper to break it up. In my scraps, I found a few different pieces that would work. This floral, which is a Cartabella floral from the Wildflower collection. Yeah, it has it's more of a navy than the royal blue, but there's only going to be a little bit of it showing, and it has pink and aqua rather than a true green. So I like that. Then this one was also from Wildflower, and this is a crepe paper from the same one that I did those little cut aparts from, and notes and things. Okay, so let me start layering here in the middle and see how all of this could work. I do a little stack with everything a bit imperfect. Tiny little angles there. And then my photo on the top. This is something I really like if one of your layers is a little too busy and when you put the photo next to it, you don't get a nice crisp edge, move it over to one layer where you do get a crisp edge, and that will help the whole photo show even though I don't have the crisp edge on 3 sides. It's enough to tell your eye, oh yep, this is the photo and that's the paper. Okay, so from here, let me start layering. I think this vertical column is going to be the easiest, so I'm going to put the one from the side to the side at the moment and do this one first. I have these different frames. This could come all the way up here. I'm just looking for how the text lines up on the background lines. So I like it on that one, although the blue is pretty much in line there and I'm not loving that. So maybe if I move it up just a tiny millimeter. And what I'm going to do is, I know that the base of this is going to be covered by the other elements. So to hold it in place, I'm just going to staple it. Then I can build my other pieces around, and I even like when this happens with a staple. So my adhesive is down here and I don't have a pop dot there, but I just naturally have that tiny little bit of dimension that's going to keep it up. And then this one's going to tuck behind that mat. And see, I'm looking at that space and wanting to cover that up. So I have that. And then I have my round embellishment that I want to include here. I can tuck part of it behind right there. I want my text to show, so that's going to work. Now, again, I'm having to use more adhesive than you normally see me use because of the tool. But I do find, of course, you can adhere tool by stitching it to the page. Of course you can. But you can also just glue it if there's a paper layer either side, but you'll need more glue than normal just to make sure that plenty of adhesive is getting in between the little gaps in the tool. So that is a handmade embellishment with cut apart pieces, and it's starting to look right to me. So now I have this big column. I need to work this side of the page, work on this side of the page. And maybe I need a little bit more that can separate these two aquas because I still have quite a bit here. So I could have a little border strip, and that busy paper that I had used in the centers, I cut some little strips from it. Maybe not quite so much. Oh, well, that didn't work. Let me try again. I'm trying to get just that tiny little bit of pink right alongside that edge. And now I start to have, I know I just added more aqua, but there's method to my madness. The reason I wanted to add more aqua here is to echo this box. So that it's like I'm extending the shape without making just one great big box of the paper. And because there's going to be other things back here, I don't think it's going to be quite so obvious that there's aqua on aqua there. Now, do I like this? I like it underneath, I think, but I want the documented part to show. Just get it into the right spot, and then I'm going to staple this one. Big frame. And my smaller frame. and my big handmade embellishment. Now keep in mind, I have not put my title or my journaling on this page, so this is a little different from my usual process order because I tend to put the journaling and the title on first before I do the embellishment because then I don't run out of room. I'm very conscious that I could run out of room, but I have that striped light pattern paper in the background, so even if I embellish all of this so much that I don't have anywhere to write in one of these frames, for example, I can add my journaling right onto the background and it'll be relatively easy. It'll be a very busy page, but I don't have a problem with a busy page here or there. And in fact, compared to some styles, all of my pages are busy, but compared to other styles, they're not busy at all, so there's the happy medium in everything. And whatever makes you happy as you're making stuff works. That's what I think. I'm wondering about bringing this one all the way to the edge and actually having this frame on top. Yep. So this frame's going to go above here, and I'm going to work my title into this space right here. I might be able to journal in that area there, and if not, it can go up there. I also have this space that could create a good title. And I have a little bit of finishing touch that I will do to this embellishment, but at the moment I think this is a good point for me to pause the embellishment to do my title and my journaling. When I pulled out my supplies for this page, I was adding aqua accents, and so I pulled out aqua thickers for my title. But if you look at this, I think that's just going to be a sea of aqua. And aqua originally was meant to be just an embellishment or an accent color for me. So I'm going to change my mind on that, and I'm going to go with white and maybe navy blue. Maybe I need to see if I can find some royal blue. Anyway, I'm going to use white and have my title on top of the aqua, and then and see if I can do a good match for the blue. And then I think that will give me a little bit more variety and bring in that meaning of the blue color that I wanted to include. Last week, you saw me put my title down and then immediately pick it up and move it because the placement didn't work. And quite rightly, there is a way that you can totally avoid that very easily, and that's to use a bit of acetate or a ruler, wax paper, anything where you can put the stickers on the edge of something and move them around the page. And it definitely works. However, sometimes there are things that make complete logical sense that don't make creative sense for the individual. And that is the case with me and letter stickers. There is something that goes through my mind when I put them down, and even if I have to pick them up and move them around again, that just doesn't happen if I use that little trick of trying to figure out their placement by moving them around the page in a row. I don't know what it is that makes it work that way for me. But I do say, embrace what works for you. Now in this case, I think it's going to mean bringing this L down a little bit. See, that feels so low that it then becomes an E or even a P. And I try to avoid this that's happened in the middle, but I don't think I'm going to be able to here, because if I bring it all the way up here, it looks too high. And if I bring it in the down here, it's too low. So sometimes something has to give. And here, because this was on a little bit of an angle and this is straight, see, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move it around again. I'm going to move these pieces down just a little bit to see if I like it better with them following the line of the selfie text that I put down earlier, and I do. Now, I will say a few things about this title. One, the handwritten script type title, especially this kind where it's very organic. It's not neat and tidy. with this much embellishment on the page, if this much embellishment was already too much to your eye, you wouldn't want to use an alphabet like this. You would want something nice and simple and print so that you're simplifying your title, and you'd want it on straight lines, and that would simplify even more, and it would balance all the chaos you're getting from lots and lots of embellishments. However, I don't mind lots and lots of embellishments on a page here and there, along with a more untidy type title, especially if the letters like this one are really big and bold and easy to read. One more tip before I go on from the title, and that is, if something like this original question of how do I tie in the embellishments with all the other things on my page, your title, bring it closer to whatever else is there. I don't know if you were watching and any of you were shouting at me to put the title up here in this empty space. I didn't, and I wouldn't have, because I want my title to be as close to all this other stuff as I want. And that, although there's certainly a case to put it up here, I would say on this type of page, when you have lots of layers and you have slight angles and you have this kind of more organic, pieced together, stacked together look, if you take the title and you put it up here, that's a completely different style. That's more like newspaper design, where everything is very clean, or magazine design, it's very clean and you have lots of purposeful space. This is a more collage style, although I'm not by any means saying that this is some sort of art level collage. It's just paper stuck together, but that's okay. But this style works so much better if you keep everything close. So that's the first thing that I would say, is if it's starting to look disconnected, look and see if your title is floating in the air somewhere. And if so, bring it back down to earth by bringing it in here with all of the other pieces that you've added. Okay, as it turns out, I've got room to add my journaling here. So I'm going to do that and then finish my embellishment. In my final step of making the handmade groupings work with purchased embellishments, my last step is that although I'm going to add more, and I'm going to use things that are not handmade, things that are purchased, stickers and enamel dots, I'm going to limit myself, and I'm not going to pick out like 6 or 10 different things or have complete freedom in all of my stash. I'm going to pick 1, 2, or 3 maybe products, and then that's it. So that I have some things that I can put in each of the 3 groups, so that there'll be some similarity, but also some slightly different pieces. So enamel dots work well because I can put 1 in each and they'll all match. But stickers work well because they're coordinated, but they're not going to be identical in each one. And I'm going to limit the additional textures that I bring in. So for example, I could bring in wood veneer at this point, but there's no other indication of wood on the page, and to me it's a little bit too far of a step on this particular page with this particular mix, because there's nothing that's particularly natural wood or anything like that. And I think I might prefer it that way. And that's why I'm going to limit it to stickers, which have a similar texture to paper, and then enamel dots, which have the same sort of color quality, but just a slightly different texture in that they're shiny and that they're going to have a little bit of dimension. But they're more like a paper than something like wood. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so I start with the larger elements. So I'm going to pick 1 sticker for each of the 3 groupings. And then I do the smaller element, which is going to be the little enamel hearts. Okay, so I have 1 sticker from each one. They're different colors, they're different shapes, but they're all similar enough that they will work together. And then I can choose my color, and I think this is going to be the best place to bring in my blue again. One little blue heart in each little grouping. So each grouping has a mix of things that I got out of my scraps and things that I stuck straight from a product sheet to the page. And now I take one last look to see if there's anything that feels like it isn't belonging, and is there a way that I could make it belong. And what I'm seeing is that this sticker looks a little bit like it's floating, and I'd like to bring a little bit more attention here. So I'm going to do that with some thread. This is just normal sewing thread. It's more aqua. Of course, I have so much aqua. I'm just going to run it in a little loop. And in this case, I'm going to put it behind the sticker. Now, I realize this is a different texture that I'm bringing in at the last minute, and I just talked about not doing that with the wood veneer. However, to me, this texture isn't hugely different because I've already got that tulle netting in the background. This also fits my story, even though you wouldn't necessarily know it because it's not part of the story I've written. But I associate sewing with my grandmother very much, so it makes sense to me to have thread on pages that are about her, even though I don't need to write it on every single page. It is in my albums in certain places, so it's definitely there to be read, even though it's not on every layout about her. And just to make it all coordinate, one more down here in this bottom circle.
Now, I know I said at the beginning that my answer to mixing homemade embellishments with store-bought items is to add more, and I wasn't really kidding. So I do end up with a lot on the page, and it takes a little bit more time. However, those handmade embellishments, like the 3 little circles with the Viewmaster, the heart, and the camera, are things that can be made just one at a time or just 3 at a time and sat on my desk waiting for the right time. So if you have to scrapbook in smaller chunks of time, it's actually a great way to work. Thanks so much for watching. Do check out Tori's YouTube channel and all her Scrap Your Scraps ideas, which I've linked here so you can click on over. And if you'd like to ask Glitter Girl a question, do so in the comments or check out our Facebook group, Scrapbook Like a Superhero. There's a link below. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.